What's up, everyone? Welcome to DFS Fantasy Foreplay on this week 11. Gentlemen, how we doing? How was our last week? Did we make money or did we not make money?
I'm still crying.
Once again, the only thing that saved me was cash games. I went so heavy in cash games and late in GPPs last week that I actually was cash flow positive. Somehow, some way, ended up cash flow positive. But when you go in, you just drop $25 and 50/50s and you clean up all your 50/50s and take your $50 home, it kind of works out.
Yeah.
So joining me, we have Mr. Webboy, who just looks sad because he only took down one tournament last week.
Yeah.
Instead of the two that he was kind of lined up to do. And then Dan McClellan, who looks like he's still crying in his Cheerios after the disaster he had last week.
Yeah, the only thing that saved me at all was I did hit the Sunday night through Monday night for like 67.50 or something like that.
Oh, you didn't lose on the last play of the game?
Not this time. No, the second defensive touchdown bailed me out this time.
All right, so gentlemen, like we do every week, why don't we break it down and start with our HotMess Express. Toot toot. We have no sound bites this week. We have, obviously, as you can all tell, we are not in the studio. We're all in various separate places because the automobile gods hate us.
I could have posted
that's basically what that boils down to. All right, so gentlemen, HotMess Express last week. Let's fire it up. Drew Brees, we've already, briefly brought him up, and yeah, what a game there, huh, Webby?
Well, it happens. Trap game. It seems that Falcons came to play. I mean, what more can you say about that game? The Falcons showed up in every which way and put a hurting on the Saints. It actually destroyed 43% of all suicide leagues last week.
Wow.
43%.
That is not a small number either. Not in suicide pools. You did not take them, I hope, right?
No, I didn't. I took, the Colts, and they lost.
Oh, so you're out?
I am out, and between those two teams, that was over 60% of suicide league failure. The league I'm in went from 25,000 people to 3,541.
Wow.
Yeah, last week was suicide. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
for
that's
a lot,
brutal.
Yeah, a lot of people.
That is brutal. Mm-hmm. All right, someone else I want to throw on this roster over here, David Montgomery. We were high on him last week. Thanks for your 6 rushing yards and a whopping 6 points. Mike Gesicki, we were high on you. So was the rest of the industry. Apparently, so we're 25% of the people in the tournament that I'm looking at here. Got a whopping 4.8 points.
Yep, 22% on.
Devin Singletary, we were hot on you too. Thanks for the 8 points. Oh, Marlon Mack, you were playing the Dolphins. You lost to the Dolphins. Thanks for your 9.2 points.
I got to thank Cooper Kupp for a whopping 0 points.
Yeah, how does that happen? How does that happen?
Not even part of the game plan. Was he targeted?
He had the best matchup of any wide receiver in the National Football League last week and got no points.
Not targeted. Just non-existent in that game. Used him as a blocker.
I will say, Kareem Hunt, thanks for the 14.4 at 2% owned and your 6,000 price tag.
Yeah, that worked out. That's 2 times earnings. HotMess Express, Carolina Panthers defense.
Yeah, you can go there.
For a team that has been pretty much hot all year on defense, 2nd or 3rd ranked in DFS and PPR leagues. Yeah, 2 points. 2.
You could take the whole entire tight end core too, outside of like 3 guys: Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, and Kyle Rudolph. Okay, you can give it to Greg Olsen and Gerald Everett, but that's about it.
Yeah,
OJ Howard did. He did get a touchdown against the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's one of the guys we were flipping and debating along with Gerald Everett. Your top tight ends: Mark Andrew, Travis Kelce, Kyle Rudolph. Those are your top three.
1% owned Kyle Rudolph.
1% owned, 6,500 in fantasy draft. Put up 19.4. That's 3 times earnings there.
3x earnings, yeah.
Yep, 3x earnings. You did the Everett move. 1% owned across leagues, $8,400 is what he cost. He put up 14. Still would have been a better play. OJ Howard was probably the play at 6,400.
I do got to tip a hat to Ren for his Christian Kirk pick, who led all wide receivers with 40.80. So, Kirk, you're not on the HotMess Express.
No, he is not. That's actually one of the few that panned out last week for me.
And I had him in very many lineups with Michael Thomas. So there's your 70.
So did the Golden Tate pick there, Dan.
Golden Tate, 24.5.
Golden Tate, who you swapped out of our
I did. Everything I did was wrong, basically. Who did I swap him out for here?
You swapped him out for somebody.
No, I have it. It's right here because I have the lineup. No, this is another one I swapped out. This is my article lineup. Let's look at my other atrocious lineup. Our lineup.
I would just like to say that because of the Gesicki 4.8, which he should have put up way more than that, I finished 6 points out of the money. 6 points. It was one of those days.
Yeah, again, the only places I made money was cash games. All of my tournament plays started off strong and then fell flat because I went cheap and didn't go Christian McCafferty. Didn't really go the Aaron Jones route either. I was going like Singletary and Mack and Montgomery. The only thing Chicago could do right was run the ball, and they couldn't even do that right last week. It's just, it goes to show that week in, week out, anything is available. We can do all of our research and make our predictions based on analytics and gut feelings and all of that. At the end of the day, we're not out there running the ball or passing the ball or catching the ball. It's just that's what drives most of us to keep playing the way we do too.
Yeah, I cashed out this week on a lineup that put up 131 points.
Is that sad?
Yeah.
Isn't that sad?
Yes, first place was 197, 131 cashed out.
Wow. All right, so gentlemen, let us dive into this week. This week we have 4 teams on bye. We have the Packers on a bye. We have.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was 177 points. I'm sorry, I was wrong there.
What are our bye week teams here, fellas? I don't have my analytics up here for that.
Are there buys this week?
Yes, because the Packers are on a bye. Seattle is on a bye.
There's only 4 teams on buys this week because there's 14 games this week.
I named 2. Packers are on a bye. Seattle is on a bye.
I'm trying to remember the other 2. I don't know offhand. I'm looking this up. It's not the Cowboys, right? They play? Yeah, they play. It's the Packers, Giants, Seahawks, and Titans.
Yep. Giants could use a bye after getting smoked by the Jets. Even though that was a very entertaining game to watch if you had the opportunity to watch that, which here in the Northeast was one of the only games you could watch on regular TV the only game you could watch at 1:00 on TV.
Yeah, it'd be the same way this week when the winning Jets, now I guess you can call them that, have to face the Redskins. So the Jets should win another game.
Which is very interesting, which will break into our conversation here. So diving right in, why don't we start at quarterbacks? Because I think this conversation is it's an interesting one. Like time in, time out. If you don't pay up, you get burned. Last week, Lamar Jackson. Week before, Russell Wilson. It paid to pay up. It paid to run that stack. Hollywood Brown was no ownership last week, scored a touchdown. This week, I think in cash games, you can probably spread it around a little bit. Lamar Jackson at 13.9K. Kyle Allen all the way down the bottom at 10.5K. And then I'm liking Derek Carr right in the middle at around 12.5K. How do we feel about any of those three?
Well, I hit on all of them in the article, so I agree with that. A couple other names I would add to the list, and I'll add three names to the list. I'm just afraid to play Drew Brees. I know you need to have a recency bias, and it's just that I've played him twice so far this year, and he got hurt, and then it was last week. But I think Brees is in a fantastic spot to bounce back. Deshaun Watson on optimizers is actually the highest, shows the highest projected points, but I'm a little cautious with this matchup against the Ravens, particularly what the Ravens did against the Saints. And I think a name that would be easily overlooked, but we've talked about attacking the Eagles defense, and I think Tom Brady at 12-1, I nearly went with Brady in the article. It was pretty much a coin flip. It really came down to the wide receiver that I wanted to use.
I have some comments on all that. I agree with you on the Breeze thing. I actually like the opposite side of the ball. I think Jameis Winston can have a really good game and make up for, I don't want to say a poor performance, but not the greatest performance against New Orleans. I think that was week 5. The New England Patriots Eagles game, I don't like either quarterback in that due to what the weather is going to be. I can see that game being well more of a ground and pound game with the bitter cold that it's supposed to be. 30? Is that 37 degrees? I think it might even be colder than that. And rain expected for at least the second, third, and fourth quarter of that game. And it's going to be windy, very windy in that game, like 13, 14 mile an hour winds. I think the weather plays a big factor as we start to head into those cold weather games.
I appreciate Webboy. I think that's great insight that I hadn't even factored that in. And I think that's part of me living on the West Coast that I tend to not think about as much as you guys on the East Coast. But it's definitely, as we get, past Halloween, you have to be looking at the weather report every week and letting that have a factor in your decision making who you choose.
Yeah, especially as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, where defenses and running games really start to, I don't want to say improve because we've seen some serious running games this year, but they become a factor, more so than a September game.
Much more if you get the lead and you just kind of grind it out and control the clock.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I got the weather report here for that game, 39 degrees. It's going to feel like it's 31, so we're talking below freezing temperature. The wind for that game should be anywhere between 13 to 15 miles an hour and 71% humidity, so you can expect to see some light rainfall. And I think 100% cloud cover for that game. I think that's going to be a factor, and it shows with Philly it has been a factor in many games before. So that's my thought. I mean, I like the Brady idea. It's a good matchup for him, but I think that might be more of a Sonny Michel. And who are the Eagles even using for a running back? I mean,
is it going to be Ajayi just got signed? Or no? Yeah, I think it was Eagles just signed Ajayi.
Because they signed it, they just brought him back.
Wow. Yeah, because Sproles is out.
Sproles is done for the season.
Right.
He's done.
Yeah, he's done now.
He's probably done for his career.
Well, he was going to retire anyway. He came back this year because they asked him to.
Yeah. So I mean, the run play in that game might be good. Might be good.
How do y'all feel about Dak at 12-6 against Detroit?
It's one of the better matchups of the week.
I think he's going to be low owned too.
What I like about it is that, Stafford's okay. There's two ways of thinking here. So Stafford's not going to play.
Stafford is out. He's already been ruled out.
So there's the opportunity here, I think, for Dallas to just dominate this game. But if they so that could create more opportunities for Dak. But I think there's also a game script scenario here where they're up, a couple touchdowns going into the fourth quarter, if not more, and it's just Elliott to run out the clock. So maybe the ceiling isn't as high as it should be because you don't have somebody on the other side capable of keeping up.
That's a good point. I just, will we see the passing yardage out of Dak with Amari Cooper somewhat sidelined? I think that's the bigger question, is where are they throwing that ball to? Who's been their go-to when Amari's hurt?
Gallup.
Yeah.
Gallup. I mean, then it could be the Witten. Not
Cobb.
Cobb.
Any one of those guys are viable.
Well, yeah. I mean, Cobb. Do they trust him? I mean, he had a good week last week. I don't know. That game's a little. I mean, I like the Dak move. It's like I said, it's one of the better matchups of the week, and he's gonna most likely get you your 20 points. I mean, he's averaging about 24.
I like Winston's price at 11.8.
I do see. That's just tough against Baltimore, though.
And no, Winston's playing New Orleans.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had Deshaun Watson up on the screen.
Yeah, I'm not on Watson. I know, Dan, you were on him earlier in the week, and optimizers are spitting him out. I don't know about that.
I kind of agree. In my article, I say yes, the optimizers are spitting him out, but I looked at how he performed against the Jaguars and the Panthers, who I think have a similar defense, although probably not as good as the Ravens. And in those games, he only put up a little over 12 fantasy points. So I just think that there is a real possibility that happens again against the Ravens. So I think there's a lot of risk there with Watson. Extreme upside, but I think the floor is lower than normal.
Yeah, I can agree to that. And I like the upside. I like the upside of Kyle Allen too.
Kyle Allen seems to be a good play. I still like the Jameis Winston thing, but what the issue I have with that is going back to week 5. That really started the downward slide for Winston. I mean, I know he's put the numbers up, since then, but that's where the fumbles started. Against New Orleans, he had a fumble. Against Carolina, he had 2. Against Tennessee, he had 3. Seattle 1. Arizona 1. Against the Saints, those could turn into, 1 or 2 fumbles could easily be a pick 6.
Yeah, but I mean, you could probably say the same.
I think that's more of an argument to maybe play the Saints defense as a cheaper play than it is to not play Winston.
Yeah.
Because you just don't get.
Well, you can get both sides of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't get penalized. You get much more. You get the 2 points for a fumble than you do with 1 for an interception. But I just don't. Even a pick 6, you don't get extra penalized because you threw a touchdown to the other team. If you're going to throw a 30 and you get -3 along the way, well, he's still at 27.
True. I mean, he's also thrown for 9 interceptions in the last 4 games. He had 5 against Carolina in a game that was close for a while. They wound up losing that game 37-26. But 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles. I mean, still gave you your 20 points.
Yeah, but a 10-5 against Atlanta, do you think Atlanta can replicate what they did last week against the Saints, or you just think that was a perfect storm and everything just worked out in their favor?
There's a divisional matchup there. That's Kyle Allen is who I landed on in the article, and he wasn't on my radar. He popped up on my radar when I used the, what quarterback wide receiver has the best value calculator. And that's where he popped up. The other thing to consider is, you're just talking about cold weather. Is he just threw for over 300 yards for the first time in his career, and he did it against Green Bay in the cold.
Yep,
in the snow,
307. Yeah, 3-7, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 1 fumble for a loss. He had a good game. I don't know what the weather report is for the Carolina. It's the Carolina game, right?
Yes.
That's supposed to be a good game. Mostly cloudy. 46 degrees, slight wind. It should be a good game. It's just Carolina's defense after last week's destruction. You know what? I like this game. I do like it. Against Atlanta, I kind of like it. Yeah. It's going to be a tough one, though. I mean, I don't know.
The part of me thinks that maybe Winston on the value might be a better play, just because I think I have no issue with the Saints, despite their play last week, being able to, throw up a ton of points themselves. So that's where it's like the ping pong effect goes, back and forth with those two quarterbacks.
Well, what it really boils down to is, I mean, if you're looking at this, the only two games that were really looking at both sides is the Tampa Bay, New Orleans, because I still think Breeze is a good play if you want to pay up to 13-4.
Yeah, I don't think
I like the Oakland
that.
versus Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's just basically rolling over and dying, and I think Oakland can roll on that. I think Carr is a great play at 12-5 if you don't want to go up and pay for Breeze, or go all the way up to the top and pay for Jackson, who's the most expensive QB on the board.
And I don't have a problem doing that, because Jackson at least is going to provide you.
My only concern about Jackson is the amount that he is running is just so unsustainable. Like, he's gonna get hurt at some point.
I agree, but when you talk about that stuff, I go, okay, that's a concern if I'm sitting here trying to draft for a season-long league.
But for
DFS, it's like, okay, he hasn't gotten hurt yet. Let's play him until he does.
Yeah, but what? And then that one week we played him.
Yeah.
Just remember how many quarterbacks we played that got hurt.
3, yes.
Yeah,
and have totally tanked our lines.
What I need to do is start looking what quarterbacks are on my opposing season-long leagues and start playing them in DFS.
Yeah, right. All right, so to wrap up QBs, we all like Winston. We like Kyle Allen to some degree. Derek Carr. Webby, you said you had feelings. I don't remember you saying anything about Carr against Cincy at 12-5.
It's not a bad play. I mean, when Oakland played last Thursday?
Yeah, so it's 10 days rest.
So it's a long rest for that team, which always seems to pan out well for the Raiders. I like that game. I would probably use that quarterback in lineups. I'm just not sure if I would run it in my main lineup. The one we talked about is Winston, who I really like in that game, and the other one I think should be talked about in some sort of consideration is Josh Allen against Miami.
Yeah, I think he's in. I think he's in the conversation always, just because of him being a dual threat. Again, Miami's all of a sudden decided that they don't want to roll over and die, or they've decided that it's Miami and they're not smart enough just to roll over and die and get the draft pick. So they're winning games when they don't need to be and playing some good football from what you see on the each week.
Yeah.
I'm actually playing their defense this week, and I'm not worried about it. I mean, I'm paying down at 4,200, but I think they're going to put up 8 or 10 points against Buffalo.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Oh, especially after last week with Buffalo. Sure. I can see that.
All right. Why don't we move on over to running back, where there's this is a much bigger conversation. There are so many running backs again this week that it's just a matter of trying to figure out where you want to go and how you want to get there. Christian McCafferty, they priced him up again at 19.4.
Your top 3 are priced out.
16.8,
16.8, 17.1.
17.1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Elliott, 16.8.
Who probably has the best matchup out of all running backs this week.
He just hasn't performed at an elite level, though. But it's like, if he's going to do it, it should be now. I mean, it's not that he's not playing at an elite level, but he's not putting up the points that, on a consistent basis, that Cook and McCaffrey have been putting up.
He's only really done it against the Jets and Philly.
He's also losing touches to
Pollard.
Pollard.
Well,
And Dalvin Cook's starting to lose touches too to that young kid. His name's escaping me.
Yeah,
McKissick, not McKissick.
I don't like the word losing touches with when we're talking about these elite running backs.
They're bell cow backs. 25 snaps, 25 touches compared to 18 touches is a big deal when you're talking about these guys when those 7 plays they could rip off a 100-yard run.
It's also a matter of saving them for the later weeks. You don't know. The Vikings with Dalvin Cook, you don't want to see that injury happen. Ezekiel Elliott did not really lose touches last week at 20. He just couldn't run the ball. His production, yes, you're right, it is sliding down. But, against the Giants, 6 yards a carry, only 23 touches. Against Philly, 22 touches, 5 yards a carry.
I could give you 3 running backs that if you could fit all 3 in your lineup, you're desperately paying down to make up the difference. But I think they're 3. Christian McCafferty against Atlanta has got to be a lock.
Oh yeah, it's Christian McCaffrey, and
he is the offense there outside of Samuel and DJ Moore. I really like the spot that Josh Jacobs is in. Again, going back to that Cincy game, Oakland Cincy.
Yep.
I really like him. I wish they would pass him the ball more to get those PPR points. That would be nice. I also like Brian Hill with no Devonta Freeman in Atlanta. No Ito Smith, no Devonta Freeman. And I'm pretty sure he is going to get all of the touches, and he's 10-2.
So I have all 3 of those in the article lineup. I have McCaffrey, Jacobs, and Hill. And where I paid down to make it work was I went with Raheem Mostert, who's going to play a significant role against Arizona. And what I really liked when I looked at Mostert is that in weeks 2 and 3, he was the number 2, and he got like 12 and 13 touches in each one of those games. So there's already something to look back on in this season on how he's going to be used. The matchup's great against the Cardinals, and he's a pass catching back. So I think there's a lot of value there with him.
Yeah. Has Breda been ruled out?
Let's see. I have to take a look. I knew the last I saw I was expected to miss 1 or 2 weeks. So
okay.
He is questionable.
Tevin Coleman, questionable leading to doubtful or questionable leading to probable, which we don't have those markers anymore, which sucks.
I would say leading to doubtful for the initial thing was he was going to miss 1 to 2 weeks. That
puts Tevin Coleman in a good spot too.
It does.
Didn't practice, but it was a non-injury related matter. And Breda is most likely out of that game.
So
that opens up Tevin Coleman for consideration in cash games for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mostert's a risky play. The upside's there. They did get back Juszczyk, so their running game is on all cylinders again because that guy is just amazing how he sets up the run for these kids. He's just probably one of the most prolific fullbacks in the game, and funny we even bring up that position considering who runs fullbacks anymore.
I would stay away from the San Francisco run game.
Against Cardinals?
Against the Cardinals?
Yeah, but their whole run game is, it's been somewhat non-existent.
Oh, they love to run the ball, though, man. Ground and pound.
Matt Breda all year long, no more than 15 carries, if he's lucky.
Yeah, but they're running your favorite dual-headed.
Yeah, I know, dual-headed monster. I just, without Breda in there, I know Tevin gets more time, but I don't know if the game script actually works there. That could be more of a pass-heavy unless they need to run the ball. And against the Cardinals.
If they get out to a large lead, they're just going to run the ball.
Well, and they're 10-point favored, so that's bodes well for the run game. And I said the reason why I landed on Mostert is I feel like he's basically $3,500 cheaper, but when they shared the work in weeks 2 and 3, he basically had half the touches. He had 12 carries for 79 yards in week 2, and he had, I think, plus he had 3 catches for 68 yards in TD. That was 4-point D. But then the
week 3,
I think a more
6.6.
more likely scenario is where he had like he ended up with 9.5 points. I see 9.5 points as a fair projection for him, and it's 1.5x, and it opens up the ability to spend elsewhere on those guys that Ren was talking about.
I don't disagree with that. I just the game just scares me a little bit. I mean, I get it. Mostert, Coleman, no Breda.
Do we have any opinions on either Kamara or Fournette if you don't want to go and spend money for Cook, Elliott, or McCaffrey?
Well, Kamara played him last week. I don't know. I just don't see the matchup there, but I feel like I always guess wrong with Kamara. If I play him, it's a so-so. If I don't play him, he goes off for 30 points. So
I don't think I'm going to be on him. Tampa Bay can do one thing, and that's stop the run.
Right.
And they do that very well.
So
I definitely don't like that matchup at 14K. I wasn't hot on him last week, and I know what was his ownership last week? 28%, something like that. And I thought it was a bad play. I mean, he did get the receiving yards that kept him in fantasy lineups with 15 points. But the rushing, it's not there, and I don't see that this week either. I still see more of Latavius Murray coming out of that backfield than Kamara, who had 4 attempts for 24.
Right. So, but you look at Michael Thomas, then again, is almost a must play. So,
well, yeah, and can't guard Mike. You hear me say that every week. It's along with the Christian McCafferty. I mean, it's money in the bank. As it gets harder and harder with McCaffrey, we talked about this last week. Do you still run him at 20K? He's 19.4, and we're saying what? Got to put him in a lineup.
Just because of the matchup, though.
That he's the one player on the slate who could get you 50, and it wouldn't shock you.
Exactly. And the touches are there, and as of late, so are the receiving yards.
So with regards to Fournette, he has 1,126 total yards on the season. So he's getting a ton of work, but somehow with all those yards, he's only found the end zone one time. He's this year's version of Julio Jones. And he's going against the Colts, who haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 25 games, and they've only allowed 3 rushing TDs this season. So, the discounted price compared to Cook and Elliott and McCaffrey certainly makes Fournette attractive based on the work that he's getting, but you've got to think that his ceiling is somewhat limited. I think his range for success of all these running backs is probably the narrowest, meaning that his floor is pretty darn high, but his ceiling isn't very high.
Oh, yeah, his floor is going to be at least 15 to 16 points, period. At least it should be. The ceiling really depends on whether or not he can carry the ball over 100 yards.
I'll throw out one more running back into this mix if you need somebody at a cheaper version. Based on matchup, and that'd be Le'Veon Bell at 13-1.
His injury concerns me. He played. I watching that game last week. He was not healthy.
He
came off a couple times, and you could just tell he's not 100%. He's just gutting it out at this point.
He was limited
in my opinion. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere than go spend money on Bell and not know exactly how healthy he is.
Yeah, he's got like 3 different injuries right now.
Yeah, I'd rather leave the Bell on the bench and go with the Brian Hill.
I mean, Bell's going to play that game. At least every indication I'm seeing says he plays that game. He was limited in practice the last 2 days, which doesn't bode well. But everything I'm hearing and seeing it says he suits up for that game.
Yeah, I'm hearing and saying the same. I just don't want to. I'm just not going near it.
Yeah,
it could burn me, but if he gets 15 points, you can find those 15 points elsewhere.
Yeah,
I'd rather run Jacobs. I'd rather run Tevin Coleman.
It's the injuries for Bell. I mean, it's ribs, knees, and I don't want to say it's the flu, but that's what all indications are pointing towards is an illness. And it's unfortunate because the last 2 weeks he was a good play. against Miami, against the Giants, he was a good play. I just don't know if those injuries are. I think those injuries are strong enough to limit his play this week. Yeah, I do like the Brian Hill in the Atlanta Carolina game though. That's
I like that. I think
Yeah.
I think you have to put him, almost lock him into a lineup, whether you're
especially,
playing catch or GPP.
Last week was good. The average yards per catch or per run rather weren't really there, but that was a strong defense they played up against for him. He had 20 rushing attempts for only 61 yards. And against Carolina, whose defense seems to be getting softer and softer, that could be a very, very good play. And 10-2 is not a bad price. That might be a flex spot.
All right, why don't we transition over to wide receivers? Starting with can't guard Mike, are you willing to spend 17 grand on him?
It's tough when you got McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs that you're looking to stick in a lineup. You're definitely buying down. You're definitely paying down in multiple spots.
So so instead of going all the way up top, let me give you some low guys that I'm kind of looking at. Go all the way down to the bottom. He scored 2 touchdowns in the last game. Kendrick Bourne, San Francisco. He's 6K. Traquan Smith, who's seeing more snaps than Ted Ginn Jr. is, and he's got big play ability in him. 7.4K. Deebo Samuel, another San Francisco wide receiver. Go up to 9.9K. I still think Devonta Parker is a great play.
I don't disagree with that.
11K, 10, 11K range. I like DJ Moore. I like Tyrell Williams. If you're going to go with Carr, if you go the Carr Jacobs stack, I wouldn't be opposed to throwing in Tyrell Williams as a, triple up right there.
No, I agree with that.
And then it gets a bit dicey. I mean, do you want to spend the money and go for Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk? I mean, Kirk's only 11.8. He seems fairly reasonable. But if you're going, I think I built a lineup. I think I put it out there to everyone that I had Mike Thomas and Christian McCaffrey in a lineup, and I made it work.
Oh,
something to consider here is, I know you're on Carr, and you've mentioned this Tyrell Williams, and Williams is going to face a practice squad cornerback this week, and whose Webb has allowed 24 yards per catch and 2.5 fantasy points per target. So I think if you're going to play Carr, the Carr Williams stack makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the lineup I did was Carr, Jacobs, Hill, Coleman, Thomas. I did not have McCaffrey in there.
It's not bad. I'm trying to make McCaffrey work in this lineup now.
Yeah, good luck. You can spend hours trying to make McCaffrey work, and you're trying to figure out where you're saving your money at. Obviously, you can save money in punt tight end, punt defense. I kind of like the mid-range guys, like the Tyrell Williams, DJ Moore. I think Calvin Ridley could be even in play this week against Carolina.
Wow. I was looking at Derek Carr. How many times this year do you think he's gone over 20 fantasy points?
Twice.
Once.
Yeah, I was going to say, not very many. Jacobs has been getting the ball.
He's gotten the Bengals. I mean, that's a great matchup for him to do it, and he did do it against Houston. But, man, it's just not. He's consistently in like the low teen range is where he's been.
I like Larry Fitzgerald.
But they also have played Cincinnati. Like what I'd like to know is what have quarterbacks put up against Cincinnati
I will look
week over week.
I'll look at that right now.
So other names to throw out there: John Brown, 11.3K. Terry McLaurin. I just don't know if I can trust that Washington quarterback situation. Hollywood Brown against Houston.
Who is their quarterback this week? Is it still what's his face? The kid? Is that their go-to now? I don't know if
he didn't pop up on any of my optimizers, so
yeah, I don't know if I trust.
I mean,
that.
even Ryan Finley popped up on an optimizer as a pay down against Oakland.
Okay, so I'm looking now at the Bengals. It's kind of a mixed bag. On the good side is they've allowed the third most fantasy points, an average of 24.1. They're doing it mostly though with yards allowed, which isn't. They've only allowed. You know what's killed them? It's rushing yards. They've only allowed 14 TDs, passing TDs, but they've allowed 426 rushing yards. And I don't think Carr is much of a scrambler. So I'm not sure when you look at this in its totality, if Carr is the best matchup against the Bengals to perform at an elite level. But who's in their division? Have the Bengals played like Lamar Jackson twice or something?
Yeah. I don't know.
Now look at that.
All right, why don't we transition
they just played Lamar?
to...
Yes, they have played Lamar Jackson twice, who's accounted for 217 of those rushing yards, so half of them.
I'll give you two more wide receiver names that I like this week. Gives you the ability to use them and still go after some high-priced players. I'm looking at the Arizona-San Francisco game, and I know it's not the best matchup in the world, but I think Larry Fitzgerald finally finds the end zone. Averaging 12 points a week at 9.8. That touchdown puts him at two-time value. I like that. And another guy talking the Cincinnati-Oakland game, who I think has a high ceiling with an average floor at 9,300 is Auden Tate.
He burned me last time I played him.
Well, he got held in check.
It was like week 2 or something?
No, I think I played him like 3 weeks ago. He was like my sneaky cheap value play of the week, and I mean he got value, 1x value, but that was about all he turned out that game. And again, yeah, he probably was held in check. It's a Cincinnati game, so the odds of getting that on any TV anywhere is remote unless you go out.
Do you have ownership projections in front of you?
I can have them in front of me. What do you want to know?
Okay, so DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are the same price at $11,000. I went with Samuel, believing that his ownership would be lower, and that he's against Desmond Trufant, who we'd love to pick on, who's allowed 2.9 fantasy points per target. But Moore also has a really good matchup as well, and has averaged a couple more points per game. So I just curious if my logic is correct in terms of the ownership projection on Samuel.
DJ Moore, 15.8% current ownership. Point projection is 16.62. Very, very good matchup. Curtis Samuel is at 11.8. Point estimation of 14.25.
See, I like the DJ Moore move. They've really been using him more out as a deeper threat. 13, 14, the 15-yard plays, and they've been doing it consistently now for the last 2 or 3 weeks. At least 2 weeks. And it bodes well in that offense. That might be, I mean, at 11, he's going to get you 2x. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, DJ Moore was in that lineup I created. My 2 wide receivers were DJ Moore and Tyrell Williams, along with Mike Thomas.
Oh, so you use Mike Thomas as your basically a flex play? Is
I
that
use how the construction ended up is where I ended up shifting around what was going into the flex spot because I had the whole player pool.
yeah?
Um,
That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I also don't have an issue if you want to go up and get, you know, these stud running backs and a Mike Thomas to actually play. I mean, I played Mostert, but I think another way to accomplish the same thing would be play like Everett and another tight end in that 7,000 range, or even going down again and picking on Arizona's defense and getting that tight end for 5,500.
yeah, I looked at him. I had him in a lineup. I ended up settling on Ebron.
Yeah, I mean, no, Ebron had 12
and
targets.
I don't feel good about it at all. I really didn't feel good about Ebron as a play, but again, math is there. Optimizers are spitting them out everywhere, and I don't get it. I don't see it, but
It's because of the targets. So what you're paying for,
and Brissett's back this week.
Basically paying for 50 cents a target.
Yeah, and Brissett's back this week too, though. So does that change things?
It's Brissett. He's horrible.
It's funny. We were having a conversation week 6 of the season.
Yeah,
Who has more the touchdowns and blah blah blah.
I know.
Tight ends this week, you can pay up. Top tight end's going to be Mark Andrews. He's a good play. He's only probably going to be about 5% owned. I just don't know if I'm going to have 12-9 at that spot to make that happen. Darren Waller at 10K. He's always a good play to go. He's a favorite target of Derek Carr. I couldn't fit him in to do that 4-way stack and put my eggs in that basket. I couldn't work it, not without ridiculously paying down and throwing darts at multiple positions. I think Olsen's actually in a good spot against Atlanta, 7.7K. Jared Cook against Tampa Bay.
That might be the better play over
7.7K.
Over the Olsen and Waller. I mean, I get it, but we haven't seen any production out of him since week 7.
I know.
And you're hearing his name talked about a lot, especially in fantasy lineups. But I'm not believing it. I
actually think, I think Cook is a good play. I mean, look, it's over the last 3 weeks, 13 points, 12, 7, 14, 6, 3, 4 catches against Tampa Bay, who has next to Arizona the worst. I think with Cook, I like this play because you get the combination of no one involvement in the offense, where I don't think you get that with the San Francisco tight end against Arizona, and you get a really great matchup. So you get high volume plus matchup. I think makes Cook a solid play.
Cook has been very explosive in that offense for the last 3 weeks. Last week should have been a better performance. He wasn't able to get in that end zone. And if he does, then his production last week goes from the 13 to what? 18?
Right.
And you're seeing week over week now, well, since he's back, because he was out for a while, they're using him more and more. And I think with the Tampa Bay lineup, you're going to see the same production out of him. When it comes to tight ends this week, I like the Greg Olsen play. There's no doubt about that. I think Cook is in a better position to score you more points. And I hate to be the one to say this, but Jason Witten this week. As much as I don't like how he's being used, the Giants, they certainly used him, but he couldn't break free enough to get the yardage that would have put him more fantasy viable in week 9. He did put up almost 14 points. I think this week might be a better play for Witten. Those are the 2 tight ends I'm really looking at, especially if you're trying to figure out how to get some top tier guys in a lineup.
So you're not willing to go down and play your favorite tight end, TJ Hawkinson?
Oh, come on. I've been on the Hawkinson bandwagon since week, 2?
No, you've been naysaying him. That's why I called him your favorite.
Yeah, no. He had that one breakout week 1, and that's it. That was it. He had 28 points week 1, and after that, what did he do? 1 point, 1 point, a dozen points, and now he has he's hit that medium or mean, or he's hit the average of 6 points a week. I don't see that. I mean, at 5,900, if you want 1x value, sure.
Here, I'll throw a dart out for you for 5,500. Ross Dwilly.
It's a really good matchup in that game. I mean, it's against Arizona. Arizona's got what? The worst defense in the league?
Against tight ends, and he's 5,500. I mean, there's where you could punt and get some production out of it. He caught all of his targets last week, too.
4 for
4. 3 last week, wasn't it? It was 4 for 4 the week before that.
No, it was 4 of 7 then. He was targeted 7. Okay.
Because I know he caught 3 last week, 3 for 24, average 8 yards. Again, 5 points, 6 points. And I know the tight end position is something we've been ripping on all year long. I like the plays.
All right, well, let's start building here, and let's see where we net out with. I mean, we threw out a lot of players. Let's see if we can put a puzzle together now. We all like the Winston play. Is that where we want to settle on QB? Or do you want to go down to Kyle Allen?
Well, I have Allen in the lineup. I like to diversify, but if you guys are, I'm okay with that too. And I think we most need to because of the other players that we like.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, switching or moving from the idea of Winston to Allen saves you 1,300.
But Winston is 22-point average. Allen's 14. So that 1,300 from a time, it's like a 5x return there for that 1,300 over the season.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do the math in my head here. I don't know.
We could go down to Ryan Finley against Oakland, 10K.
Then I'd rather go with Fitzmagic.
Finley has a better matchup.
Finley can't throw the ball.
I'm just putting it out there, bro. It wasn't serious.
No, I know that. But you know what? I'm looking at it and I'm like,
Wayne Haskins. That's who you were looking for,
right? Haskins, yeah. Against the Jets this week, that could be a disaster too.
Nick Foles
definitely be a disaster.
I'm either gonna go. You can convince me into Winston.
I like the Kyle Allen move. I'm just like Dan said, to save the 1,300 and what could potentially be.
Right. Kyle Allen's in. That's fine. Running backs. Do we want to see if we can fit McCaffrey?
Sure.
And Jacobs?
Yes. McCaffrey is going to be a question mark, or whether or not he gets pulled out. Same thing with Kyle Allen. I think Jacobs is in this week. McCaffrey, as much as I hate to say it, at that 19-4 this week when you're running can't guard Mike.
Okay, then are you going to play Cook or probably play Elliott, right, against Detroit?
Elliott, huh? 16-8.
Best.
I don't know. I have McCaffrey in here, and I can't. Yeah, I know. I'm seeing. I mean, it's there.
I just think if Detroit not having a reliable quarterback, this is a game where Dallas is going to roll, and it's just. I mean, my biggest concern is maybe they get off a too big of a lead, and Elliott just sits and they put Pollard in the fourth quarter.
That's any week with any player, though.
Yeah.
I gotta, Dan. I think you're right. I think Elliott's the better play over McCaffrey. I mean, just looking at numbers here and trying to analyze it and digest it, he's done great against teams that suck. I mean, he put up great numbers against the Jets. He put up great numbers against Philly. He put up great numbers against the Giants. couldn't run the ball against Green Bay, couldn't run the ball against the Saints, put up great numbers against Miami. Minnesota last week, nothing.
And when you're talking about great numbers, you're talking about almost 30 fantasy points, which is almost even at the, there's a realistic opportunity for a 2x return with Elliott in this game.
He seems to be putting up 100+ yards rushing against teams that are not performing well. Again, Giants, they faced Philly that week. Philly, not a good game for Philly. Didn't look good, didn't feel good. They didn't even smell good on the field. In the Jets, that was a tough-fought game, which Dallas overcame and won that, but he put up 105. The Green Bay game, he was shut down. The Saints game, he was shut down. Played against Miami, put up over 100. Played against Washington, put up over 100. It just seems that his time to shine is when they're playing the teams that, don't matter and they should win. We're talking Detroit this week. I like the Elliott play over McCaffrey, actually.
All right, so we'll go with those. So far, we have Kyle Allen, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, and can't guard Mike.
Okay, so we need another wide receiver here. And what is the overall census feeling of that?
I really like I want to get a part of that Atlanta game.
So what do you want? Julio Jones?
Or do you want DJ Moore for
Yeah,
11?
I'm liking DJ Moore at 11K.
I like that also. Let me pull him out and move him into that position. See what we got there.
I think I have a little info on Moore.
Tight end. Do we just want to punt it and go down and take DeWilly?
I don't think we need to yet. Let's see where we're at.
All right. Do you want to come back to it, or do you want to?
Yeah. Well, I really like Cook actually. While we were talking about it,
I think Cook.
Why don't I put Cook in there, and we can always pivot down if we have to.
I think Cook is a good play this week.
Flex play. We have an average of 77.33 left per player. Knock defense out real quick if we want.
Houston Texans.
Houston Texans.
That's where I'm looking at defense.
3,900. See, I was looking at Jets. I was looking at Miami. Even the Redskins is a good play against Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it's 5,300, and I actually like the Redskins over the Jets. The Redskins really haven't done much this year as far as defense. Again, it's been another injury year for them, but they are constantly getting to the quarterback, putting pressure on him, making him force the bad throws. Last week they played Buffalo last week, right? It was 2 sacks with a forced fumble. Minnesota, which they lost that game terribly, 19-9, still 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 for a recovery. Against the Jets, who are, Le'Veon Bell, where's he going to be this week? Might play, might not play. I think that the defensive script for that game could be a bit stronger, and Washington actually shows something. But I personally leaning more towards the Texans this week for some strange reason.
What about Arizona against San Fran? Same price as Texans. 3,900.
Are they going to get through that offensive line?
I don't know. They're not putting up points either, though.
Well, not in the last 2 weeks.
So this is the Dolphins over the last 4 weeks. 1 point, 4 points, 8 points, 11 points. It's definitely a trend there that's in the a good direction for them.
Well, their defense has been holding the yards allowed lately. They're still giving up over 300 a game, but they're starting to get to. You see it. We've talked about it weekend. Miami's going to punt the season, and that's not necessarily the case. Fitzmagic was a big change, and I think that brought a lot of change on a coaching staff mind also to go, okay, we got to play now. With the 2 wins back to back, the defense is really starting to show up. They only allowed 12 points last week, 18 the week before that.
I mean, they're playing Buffalo.
And prior to that, they were giving up what, 30? Miami's not a bad play either at 4-2.
I think I'll put in Miami because we can always go down to Houston if we need to save the $300.
Yeah,
so that gives us 9,500 a pop.
Okay, so the 10-1 running back we were at. What's the
Brian Hill, 10-2.
10-2, yeah.
Auden Tate.
Where's Auden Tate?
9-3.
We only have 8,800. We'd have to go, even if we save that 300, that only brings us to 9-1.
9-7. Kyle Allen, Josh Jacob, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas, DJ Moore, Jared Cook, Miami's D.
Brian Hill.
Slide in Auden Tate. And you're at 9-7 for your final flex.
I really want to get in.
Which puts you in there with Sonny Michel, Tyler Gabriel,
Darius Geis
Brown.
Against the Jets. No one's going to be on him.
Because no one should be. Where is Geis? What?
9,500.
Let me see that. Let me see why you would think that. I mean, I get it.
He's coming back. He's healthy. He's a body in Washington.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I get it. He's a body in Washington.
He's not going to be owned in a GPP that we're pretty chalky right now.
So in the game, I guess he got hurt in week 1. Is that it?
He was out all season. Yeah.
Yeah, but so in week 1, he had 10 attempts and 3 receptions. So at what point in this game did he get hurt? If he got hurt in the second or early third quarter, he was on pace for 20 attempts.
Sure. I think he was. I think that was after the first half. I think it was third quarter he got hurt.
I mean, that might be a heck of a find there. I mean, that's not on my radar, but when you look at the matchup and...
You can go for that if you'd like. I'm going to say no. Every player who has been looked at as, oh, he's coming back. Melvin Gordon's going to have a great week. It's his first game back, 4 points.
Here's what his interim coach Bill Callahan is confident guys will get many chances to compute it on Sunday against the Jets.
Yes, many. 4 plays.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna play him over AP at this point right now? You're gonna give him more touches than AP to make him fantasy viable. I don't see it. I mean, it could be there. I could be very wrong here, but from what we've put together over the last few weeks and the things we've seen is comeback players don't do anything. Josh Gordon, Mohamed Sanu after the trade.
How about Deebo Samuel?
That's a name that was on my rate. What's his price?
7,800.
And then maybe we go up somewhere else.
I'm going Sonny Michel at 97.
I'm staying away from Washington or New England.
I think that's going to be a run-heavy game.
So it gives us 1,900. We can either go up from Auden Tate. We can go up from Jared Cook. We can go up in defense.
Who did you slot in for that flex? I'm sorry.
Deebo Samuel. San Francisco 49ers.
What was his price?
7,800.
Okay, I'm just throwing this out there. I looked at Mostert in that spot just to see where it'd give us, and I still have DJ Moore in. And then that has 2,100 left over, and you can go from Allen to get Dak Prescott if you wanted.
So take out Debo.
What's the news on Samuel for this week before you take Debo out? I mean Sanders. I mean, Debo had a game because Emmanuel Sanders was out of the game with a rib injury.
And I don't think he's playing this week.
And Kittle, of course, was sidelined.
And Kittle is out again.
Yeah, I know Kittle's out. What's the availability of Emmanuel Sanders?
Questionable.
So even if Debo's production is cut by a third.
Missed the third consecutive practice Friday following his early exit from Monday's 30-27 loss to the Seahawks. It does not bode well for a Week 11 appearance, but the 49ers at least remain open to the possibility. Game time decision, 4:05 Sunday.
That's a 4:05 game?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, I know, but that Debo Samuel move looks pretty good now.
Yeah, I like that Debo Samuel mood.
Okay.
I also like the
over
move.
Over DJ Moore?
No, as a flex.
No, it's a flex.
Okay.
All right, so now you pull Miami out, and that lets you move up to the Jets or the Saints.
Oh, I like the Saints play.
And then that still leaves you 400 on the table, which now do you pivot off of Auden Tate?
Who's at 10-1 that's worthwhile?
Who's that? Auden Tate is 9-3. Or still can't. Okay, can't do that. 10-5. Or do you go back to Jameis Winston?
Who would you pick, Saints or Jets?
I threw the Saints in there. It leaves you 400 on the table.
It's a lot of exposure to that Saints game with nothing coming back from it. Nothing coming back on the Tampa Bay side.
Well, do you go Jameis Winston?
Then you don't want the Saints defense.
Yeah, but if you go Winston, then you can go down. Where's Winston? Winston.
11-8.
11-8.
Oh, no, you can't put him in.
Minus 900.
Right,
then you go off the
9.
Saints, and you can go down to 4,800. The Bears against the Rams.
That's not horrible.
That's not horrible. You sound like my girlfriend. How do you like this beer? Oh, that's not horrible.
Bears, Falcons, Eagles, Broncos, Dolphins.
I've ridden the Bears many, many weeks in my season longs. As of late, they are giving up massive yardage.
Yeah, 4, 6, 4, 4, 8 recently. And
I mean, we're talking 400 yards almost a game. Let's say 375 average in the last.
You know what?
5
I
weeks.
think if we leave Kyle Allen in, and we go take the Saints D, or let's see here, do we take Saints? Jets is 56. That would save us another $100. That gives us $500. Is there anybody from that Tampa game around 9,800 that's worthwhile?
Why are we so locked in on touching more on the Tampa game?
I don't know. I'd like to get something back on the other side. They're going to put points up. I mean, we could go up to D.D. Westbrook. Larry Fitzgerald, you were talking about him, 9,800.
I like Fitzgerald. I like him, but
J.D. McKissick, Detroit running back against Dallas, 9,600. He showed up in some optimizers too.
all right. What do we got? Kyle Allen is the quarterback still. Throw him back in here.
J.D. McKissick is a worthy target. Ty Johnson is expected out with concussion, which opens the door for McKissick to lead his team in rush attempts and running back targets.
Well,
He
that
faces a
sounds
Cowboy
good.
defense at home that allows ninth most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs this season.
McKissick, huh?
Projection of about 12.5 points. Do you think 12.5 points is going to be better than Auden Tate?
I think he gets more opportunities.
I agree. What do you think, Webb? Or are you that locked into Auden Tate?
No, I'm not locked into Auden Tate. I just, like I said, I can see things happening there. That game's tough because it is Ryan Finley throwing the ball, and his production, Auden Tate's production has gone down. I mean, that was last week, a one-time shot. The bigger question for me is AJ Green. He's out, right?
I don't think he's coming back this season.
I don't think so either.
Why would he come back if
The team's in the shitter. Why would he come back? You know, they're playing Oakland, which has a massive weak pass defense. I think last week's performance for Tate was, I mean, he was held in check last week. I mean, the guy has only put up 60 yards a game. I'm not completely sold on it. I mean, I know we're looking, Auden Tate's going to get you somewhere between 11 and 16. That's what I think. That's why I've got him in there. But at 9.3, you can pull him, which leaves you what, 9.7 on the table?
9.8?
9.
I put McKissick in at 96.
I've got 97 for some reason here.
Jets defense as
yeah.
opposed to New Orleans defense.
And if you slam McKissick in, and that leaves you at what, 100 on the table?
200 because of the Jets, but if I go back to
the Saints, it's even money.
Saints, even money.
All right, we got to recap. I got a little lost along the way. So
hold on, I got to find McKissick here.
9,600.
That I've got.
Okay, I got it. All right, so you got Kyle
Allen, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Michael Thomas. Do we still have DJ Moore?
DJ Moore. Jared Cook.
Okay.
J.D. McKissick. Debo Samuel. Saints D. 100 left on the table.
Why can't I find you?
There's a search feature too.
Yes, I see that. The 7,900 play.
7,800 Debo Samuel.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that move.
I think it gives us variance. I think both of those flex plays gives us variance after the Uber chalk that we have everywhere else.
Oh, well, yeah, Uber. You could say Uber chalk. I think they're all good plays.
I think they're all going to be chalky too, though. Mike Thomas is going to be chalky. Josh Jacobs is going to be chalky. Zeke is going to be chalky. Allen's going to be chalky because of his price.
Zeke will be chalky, but I think there'll be a lot of people turned off after last week's performance and the following weeks. Yeah, I'm not banking on that, but
I'm good.
I'm certainly glad that I have exposure to him. It's
been weeks since we've had exposure to him in our $1 million maker lineups.
Exactly.
So we have 100 left on the table?
Yep.
Yes, 100
I'm
bucks
good with
left
that.
on the table.
Kyle Allen, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Michael Thomas, DJ Moore, Jared Cook, Debo Samuels, JD McKenzie, and New Orleans Saints defense.
Yep.
It's an interesting lineup.
Certainly is. Let's roll. We got a naked. We got the stack with Moore and Allen. We got the Jacobs from that Cincy Oakland game. We've got both ways of the Dallas Detroit game, running backs. We got a flyer of target share for San Fran, Arizona. And we've got one of the best, arguably the best options in New Orleans and Tampa game in Cook and Thomas. I think it's a solid lineup. I think we targeted well. I'm playing it. Click. All right, Webby, you want to dole out your parlay of the week?
Sure. We've got a 16 parlay this week. I've played it. I've bet it. I like it. I am taking the Buffalo Bills over the Miami Dolphins. I know everybody's riding high on the Miami. I think they win that game versus the spread, but lose it on the money line. Take the Bills over the Dolphins. I'm putting my money on the Jets this week. As much as the Redskins look like they're shaping up, game's 2.5 points. I think the Jets are riding a higher high. They're also plus 116 on the money line. Jets over the Redskins. I'm pulling the homer move this week. I don't believe I had them in the lineup last week, or maybe I did have them in the lineup there last week. Taking the Saints over the Buccaneers. It's a 5.5 point game. Given the 220. Taking the Saints. Team 4 in the parlay this week, I'm going with the Carolina Panthers over the Falcons. Don't really see the effect of non-Cam Newton for this team against the Falcons. I think last week's game was a good game for Atlanta. I don't think it's indicative of how that team can play. You know, as Dan mentioned earlier, division game, big things on the line to prove in that division. Especially against the number 1 team. I don't think they have what it takes to do it 2 weeks in a row. Carolina minus 210 on the money line. 5-hole. Taking the Cowboys over the Lions. It's a 6.5 point game as of now. Over and under is only 45.5, so that might be something to consider and look at. Taking Dallas. I think they still got enough to take that division. Not that it matters because it is the NFC least. Taking the Cowboys at minus 286. And the final game in the parlay is a 4:00 game. I'm going to go with a favorite in this one. Take the Niners. Throw them in there. That game right there is another over and under that should be seriously looked at 45. Niners are a 9.5 point favorite. If you wallop those teams into a parlay, the Bills, the Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, the Cowboys, the Niners, you're looking at a plus 945 odds. Not great odds, but it's 10 times earnings on a $40 bet.
$400.
Yeah, 4 and change. That's where I'm going this week.
I like it. All right, gentlemen, any parting words before we get out of here?
Nope. Good luck to anybody who takes some of our advice. Go check out Dan's article right over there on WBLZmedia.com. Plethora of information in that article, week in, week out. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Gentlemen, good luck this week. Hopefully we can break the cash-only barrier and actually win some tourneys.
Please.
Would be nice, right? All right. This has been DFS Fantasy Foreplay for Week 11. We will see you next week.